Hey everyone, welcome to D20 Woodworking, and today we're talking about Wolverine and Controversy. Now, I didn't want to just do a regular Wolverine hero preview because this video is coming out a bit later, and Tony Tales came out with a really good video going through Wolverine. Maurice Andrews Jr. did a good job. Living Card Gamer did a good job. So I didn't want to kind of repeat their stuff. Plus, I didn't have that much more to add. Besides, I think he does look pretty cool. I've been a little sour on some of the X-Men stuff. I think Wolverine looks really good and really fun. But what I thought would be more fun, and this isn't meant to be serious. Like, let's get this out of the way first. This isn't meant to be super serious. I think this is more of a fun conversation. There has been controversy with Wolverine based on how the rules are written and how the card is written. And I think it's fun to go over this. If you haven't been on Facebook or Reddit or Board Game Geek, you might not have known this. But it just kind of, I don't know. To me, it's kind of interesting and fun to talk about. So what we're going to do is first talk about the actual controversy itself, in case you're not on any of those social media platforms and you didn't see it. We're going to talk about any impacts it may or may not have on the game, and then my final thoughts, right? But to understand this controversy, we have to understand some basic rules of the game. Now, I know most of you probably already know this stuff, but it's just good to kind of have a refresher so that we're all on the same page. Okay, so if you look at the appendix setup, right, you choose your identity, you put your deck together, you do all the enemy stuff, whatever, you draw cards, you resolve mulligans, then you do the setup, right? Okay, so the first thing to note is that a player's deck must include each identity-specific card associated with that chosen identity, right? So if, whoever comes out with a card in their deck, or a card that's a part of their hero deck, right, it has to be in that deck, right? Okay. The other rule we have to note is the permanent keyword, right? A card with a permanent keyword cannot leave play. Okay, what's play? Basically, in play is anything that's on the table, right? But more importantly, cards in a player's hand, deck, and discard pile are out of play. If a card is double-sided, the face-down card is out of play. So this basically means, right, that if you have a two-sided card, right, every time it's face down, it's out of play. But also, permanent cards can't be in your deck, right? They can't be in your deck. They can't be in your hand. They can't be in your discard pile. It is not allowed. Now, there was a very little bit of talk and discussion a little while back about vision. You see, vision has a setup phrase of put mass form upgrade into play, intangible side up, and you get +1 hand size, right? So it normally starts with 5, you get +1. So there's a little bit of discussion of, well, do you get 6 cards when you first start the game, or do you get 5? People went back to this original ruling and went, no. You draw cards, you resolve mulligans, then you do the setup. Easy, right? Easy ruling. That's fine. There was a little bit of talk about like intangible and dense mass form, right? Because it's permanent on both sides, and technically that's not allowed. Like we said, you cannot flipping down a two-sided card puts the other side out of play, and a permanent keyword can't be out of play. So it was kind of like this weird wording thing that kind of just people brushed off because they were more focused on, right, the setup thing, right? Do you get the +1 hand size? The same thing happened with Monica. It was barely talked about, though. You put all 3 energy form upgrades into play face down. Like it specifically says face down, but it's a permanent keyword, right? This is Gamma, for example. It's a permanent keyword, so it wouldn't be allowed face down, right? So a lot of people just had like some rules, clarifications, things. They were just kind of wondering about things. But because of the way setup was worded, it's like, okay, this makes sense, right? It's just telling you to remind you to do said thing, right? You can make that argument, right? It's reminding you to do said thing. Well, then Wolverine came around. And on his sub ability, right, it has its own word, right, snicked. Search your deck and discard pile for Wolverine's claws upgrade and put it into play. Well, let's look at the claws. It's a dash, which for all intents and purposes just means 0. Upgrade, it's a weapon. It's a permanent weapon. Right? It's a permanent weapon. The way this is phrased, though, makes it sound like, oh, this is a card you would actually draw, right? This wording is exactly the same, or almost exactly the same as Captain America, right? Search your deck and discard pile for Captain America's shield, upgrade and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. The reason why this is important is because this shield can be thrown, right? It can be used for different things in the gameplay. So you would draw it from your hand and use it, and then like it uses it as a weapon, it bounces off people, it goes to your discard pile, you try to get back, right? Like it's a whole system that's used. The claws are not that. That's not what these claws are doing. All right, so people have kind of really dove into this and really kind of thought about this and say, well, no, like obviously the way that this is written, they want the claws in the deck so that if you have Ultron drone, it could be one of the drones, right? So you never get the claw, or if it ends up in your hand, you wouldn't be able to play, even though you probably would be able to, because again, a null would just be a 0 cost, right? But there's like a lot of weird things of what they're doing, and Honestly, for me, what it seems like is a copy and paste error, right? It seems like they just use this wording because that was the first wording that came out or put on or whatever. I don't know, but it seems like poor wording to me at best. Now, the reason that this is all kind of important is because they're going to be coming out with a permanent keyword ruling, right? They're going to change the rules or clarify the rules or something. We don't know exactly what it is yet. And there's been some speculation that, oh, they already have that ruling and this card reflects that ruling, which I don't think that's the case because they worked on this card 2 years ago. And if that was the case, they would have already had the ruling out, right? The timeline wise, it doesn't make sense to me, but they're probably coming out of how to figure it out. And most likely what they're going to do with the ruling is say permanent cards in the very beginning get put aside. You do all the rules, then you resolve the setup ability for permanent keywords. It would come into play, right? That would be the best thing, the most logical thing. What they might do, which would actually be kind of funny, is if they said that the setup card for permanent keywords, like the permanent cards are just in there, it would actually give Vision a +1 hand size right off the bat, which actually could be kind of funny and kind of cool because it makes Vision like a lot better than, not a lot better, but it makes him better than, right? But for everyone else, like basically it doesn't do much, right? His setup would not really be needed, just be like a friendly reminder, right? Logan would essentially be having a blank alter ego box because you wouldn't worry about the setup of this because it doesn't 100% make sense, right? Like you kind of get where I'm going with this. So with the ruling, until we know what it is, we don't know any like firm implications that it will have on the game. But here's the thing, and as far as how this affects the game and also my final thoughts, they kind of tie together because the problem is what I see here with these cards and with this wording is that there is a process breakdown somewhere, right? There's some issue that's going on because it didn't take long for the community to find this wording problem, right? It did not take long. This whole thing with permanent and face down cards and hero specific cards, like this has been brought up before. Like this is not a new topic, but again, they worked 2 years in advance, so it kind of makes sense that, you know, some of the cards are still wrong. But we've all known about these problems, they've been expressed, and yet it's still happening. Now, my guess is that they're just so far working in advance that they don't have time to go back and look at these things, which is unfortunate because they should be able to, right? Like they should have been able to, even a year later, look at Logan's stuff and changed the wording or something and then printed the cards, right? This should have been, in my opinion, been picked up, which again leads to the problem I think some people are having with all of this, is that there is issues at Fantasy Flight Games. Now, I'm not going to lay all the blame at the lead designers. It's not 100% their blame. They do have some problems because this should have been caught. They should have had checks and balance processes, and they should have been caught in that process. The playtesters should have caught this, right? The community can catch this in the first second. This should have been caught during playtesting. Now, again, we don't know the internal workings of everything, so maybe all these cards looked very different and this was a last minute thing added on or something. I don't know. So that's a whole lot of speculation. But what we do know is that they are cranking through content in this game. This is War Machine. War Machine was released November 12th, 2021. Now, since that time, War Machine, the Hood, Valk, Vision, the whole Sinister Motive cycle, Mutant Genesis, and Cyclops and Phoenix should all come out about in a year's span at that time. That's a lot of content to put out there. I mean, that's a lot of content. That's about 2 cycles worth of content in 1 year. That's insane. That's insane. And to me, what that shows is that they're just doing too much. Now, don't get me wrong. As a content creator, I love it, right? I'll take more content because it lets me do more videos and talk about this stuff and have fun. But as someone who loves this game and wants the best for it, I think the worry is when small mistakes like this card are made, right? These small issues. Well, what's happening with the bigger issues, all right? Why is this happening? Is it just an oversight that probably should have been picked up because of the way the processes work, they just can't? Or is it because they are rushing through this and they're just trying to capitalize on profits? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for businesses trying to make money. I know Asmodee and Fantasy Flight want to make money, and this is a big IP for them. I'm willing to bet this is one of, if not the top games for probably definitely Fantasy Flight, but as well as Asmodee, right? This is a huge IP. And it feels like they're rushing to quote unquote strike while the iron is hot. I don't know if that's needed, though. You see, this is the search term of Marvel on Google Trends since January 1st of 2004. And there's been peaks and valleys and whatnot, but the overall trend continues to go up. The interest in Marvel is not going away. Marvel is still popular today as it was pretty much any other day. So you don't need to rush this stuff out in the fear that, oh no, our IP might get old and stale and, you know, nobody's going to want to buy this stuff. That's probably not going to happen. So for me, the big thing is, my big takeaway at the end of the day is, look, I think it's important to call out these errors when we see them, right? I do think it's important to call them out, because if we just sit there and say, oh no, everything they do is absolutely perfect, they're never going to improve, right? There are small errors, there are small issues in the game, and they need to be called out in a constructive manner, in a nice manner. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, in my opinion. But we can also understand that we know what the intent was, right? When I look at these cards and I look at, you know, Logan's Claws and whatever, and I look at Gamma and I look at Visions and Tangible Mats, like, I understand what the intent was of the game, and I think that's important too. Maybe we don't get to play the rules 100% right, but we're playing them 99.5% right. I'm okay with that. I think that's all right now, and I think it's good that they're willing to look back at their rules and make adjustments and, you know, fix things. I think that's good for the game, and hopefully moving forward we won't see small issues like this. But I think one of the worst things that can come from this is that we dissolve down into two groups on social media of just like attacking each other. It's been pretty vicious in certain parts of social media, and that's kind of sad to see, because here's the thing. I think when we talk about this stuff and we are open about it, I don't know anyone that's doing it with malicious intent. Right? I really don't. I think people are doing it because we love this game so much, and we just want it to be the best possible version of itself it can be. I'm sure the designers feel the same way. I'm sure the playtesters feel the same way. Everyone cares about this, and we each have our own unique way of showing how much we care about it. So all I'm saying is, let's walk and chew gum, right? I think we can call out when we see issues with the game, right? When there's rules issues, when there's playing issues, whatever, we can call it. But we can also try to understand the intent and enjoy the game for what it is. I think if we do both those things, we'll be just in a good spot overall. But I think it's important to do that, right? It's important to have that balance. So anyway, that's kind of just a really long-winded rant about this whole controversy. Hopefully that catches you up. Hopefully, you know, you understand it. Hopefully, you know, we'll see where this leads us in the future. But do me a favor. One, make sure to hit subscribe, right? It really helps the channel out, and hit like down there. But leave a comment. Do you care about this stuff, right? Like, is rules following 100% the most important thing to you? Is just understanding the intent? Like, you know, does it not matter? Does it matter? Whatever it is, like, let me know down in the comments what your overall thought is of this as a whole. I'm really interested to read those. And yeah, if you like videos like this, instead of just, you know, straight up reviews and previews, and you want to kind of get more in depth about different stuff, like if you want like more content like this, like, let me know. Anyway, that's my whole thing. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.